3 months after the battle with the Hrek Dominion, life in the neutral zone had found a new rhythm. Frontier Station had grown larger, with new sections being added weekly. Human and Valorian families now lived there together, their children playing in the common areas while adults worked side by side. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the station's main corridor, nodding to people as he passed. A Valorian child ran past him chasing a human boy. Both were laughing, their voices mixing in a sound that would have been impossible a year ago. Jake smiled. This was what they had fought for. He met Commander Vexillar in the station's command center. The Valorian had been promoted after the battle and now served as joint commander of the station, alongside a human officer named Colonel Helen Grant. Captain Morrison. Vexillar greeted him. Good timing. We've received interesting news from both our governments. Good interesting or bad interesting? Jake asked. Good, I believe. Supreme Counselor Zareth and the UN Security Council have agreed to expand the alliance. 5 more human colony ships are being sent, and the Empire is opening 3 more sectors for joint exploration. Jake felt genuine pleasure at the news. That's excellent. How is Counselor Morax taking it? Vexlar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Not well, but even he cannot argue with results. Trade between our peoples has increased by 60%. Technology sharing has benefited both sides, and the defeat of the Hrek proved the value of cooperation. Speaking of the Hrek, Jake said, any word on whether they'll try again? Our scouts report they've withdrawn to their own territory. The battle cost them dearly. Intelligence suggests they're reconsidering their expansion plans. Colonel Helen Grant entered the command center. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. Gentlemen, we have visitors incoming. A delegation from the Krill Confederacy wants to discuss establishing diplomatic relations. Jake and Vexillar exchanged glances. The Krill were another species in the region, one that had maintained cautious neutrality with the Valorian Empire for centuries. They want to talk to us specifically? Jake asked. Helen nodded. Their message said they were impressed by the human-Valorian alliance. They're interested in establishing similar relationships. The galaxy is taking notice, Vexillar observed. Other species see what we've built here. They want to be part of it. Over the next few weeks, more delegations arrived. The Krill came first, followed by representatives from the Telmari Republic and the Osean Union. Each had watched the battle against the Hrek. Each had seen 2 former strangers become allies. And each wanted to explore similar arrangements. The negotiations were complex. Each species had different needs, different concerns, different cultures. But the framework that humans and Valorians had created provided a template: mutual respect, open communication, fair trade, and shared defense. Jake found himself in meetings almost constantly. He worked with diplomats from Earth and advisors from Valoria Prime, helping to shape agreements that would define the region's future. It was exhausting work, but also deeply satisfying. One evening, Jake sat in his quarters aboard the Defiance, reviewing reports. Lisa Hayes stopped by with 2 cups of coffee. You look tired, she observed, handing him a cup. I am, Jake admitted, but it's a good tired. A year ago, we came through that portal not knowing what we'd find. Now we're helping build something that might change the galaxy. Lisa sat down across from him. Do you ever think about how differently things could have gone? If Vexillar had opened fire instead of talking? If we'd been more aggressive? All the time, Jake said quietly. We were lucky. Both sides chose to take risks for peace instead of certainty through violence. That's rare. It's more than luck, Lisa countered. You made good decisions. Vexillar showed wisdom. Both governments supported you despite opposition. That's not luck, that's leadership, Jake smiled. Maybe, but I prefer to think of it as hope. Hope that intelligent beings can work together. Hope that our differences make us stronger. Hope that the future can be better than the past. Meanwhile, on Valoria Prime, Supreme Counselor Zareth addressed the Imperial Council. The chamber was full with representatives from across the Empire present to hear his speech. 1 year ago, Zareth began, the Empire faced a choice. An unknown species emerged in our space, challenging our authority. We could have responded with immediate force as tradition demanded. Instead, we chose to listen. He paused, letting his words sink in. That choice has transformed our empire. Through cooperation with humanity, we have gained new technologies, opened profitable trade routes, and found loyal allies. When the Hrek threatened us, humans stood with us in battle. They bled alongside our warriors. They proved that partnership is not weakness but strength. Counselor Morax stood. His scales were darker now, signs of stress and age. Supreme Counselor, I have opposed this alliance from the beginning. I believed it made us vulnerable. The chamber went silent. Everyone expected another argument against the humans. I was wrong. Morax continued. I have reviewed the battle records. I have spoken with our fleet commanders. The humans fought with courage and skill. More importantly, they kept their word when it would have been easier to retreat. That is the mark of true allies. He sat down heavily. The Empire is better for this alliance. I withdraw my opposition. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. If Morax, the strongest critic, now supported the alliance, then the debate was truly over. Zareth nodded respectfully. Thank you, Counselor. Your honesty honors this council. Now we must look forward. The alliance with humanity has brought peace and prosperity, but it is just the beginning. Other species seek similar relationships. The Empire must decide what role we will play in this new galactic order. Back on Frontier Station, Jake received a message that made him stop and stare at his screen. It was from Admiral Stevens, and it contained orders he had been hoping for but not expecting. Promotion to Admiral and permanent assignment as Commander of Joint Human-Valorian Operations. Lisa read over his shoulder. Congratulations, Jake, well deserved. It's not just me, Jake said. It's all of us. Everyone who took risks, who trusted aliens they'd never met, who fought together against a common enemy. Still, you were the one who chose to talk instead of shoot that first day, Lisa pointed out. That decision started everything. Jake thought back to that moment facing Commander Vexillar across view screens, both ships armed and ready to fire. He had made a choice based on hope rather than fear, and somehow, against all odds, it had worked. 6 months later, Frontier Station hosted a ceremony that would be remembered for generations. Representatives from 7 species gathered to sign the Galactic Cooperation Charter, a document that established principles for peaceful coexistence and mutual defense. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the stage alongside Supreme Counselor Zareth, watching as each representative added their signature or mark to the charter. Humans, Valorians, Krill, Telmari, Ossians, and others, all committing to a shared future. When it was done, Zareth addressed the assembled crowd. Today we make history, not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation. The Valorian Empire ruled this region for 3,000 years through strength alone. We believed power was the only currency that mattered. Humanity showed us a different path. He turned to Jake. Admiral Morrison, when your ship emerged from that portal, you could have seen us as enemies or obstacles. Instead, you saw potential allies. That vision, that hope, has created something new in the galaxy, a community of species working together, respecting differences, sharing knowledge, defending each other. This is your legacy. Jake felt emotion well up as he stepped forward to speak. Supreme Counselor, friends, this is not just my legacy. It belongs to everyone here, to Commander Vexillar, who chose wisdom over tradition, to the Valorian Council, who supported dialogue despite opposition, to every human and Valorian who fought together, worked together, and built this station together. We did not do this alone. We did it together. And that's the point. He looked out at the diverse crowd, seeing humans, Valorians, and others standing side by side. A year ago, humanity was alone in its part of space. We came here hoping to find intelligent life. We found something better. We found partners, allies, and friends. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. There's room for different cultures, different beliefs, different approaches. Our diversity is our strength. Applause filled the chamber. Species clapping in their own ways, creating a symphony of appreciation. Later that evening, Jake and Vexillar stood together one last time on the observation deck. Both were being reassigned. Jake to coordinate expansion efforts and Vexillar to lead diplomatic missions to other species. Strange how things work out, Vexillar said. When I first saw your ship emerge, I thought it was the end of everything I knew. In a way, I was right. The old empire, built on conquest and dominance, ended that day. But something better took its place, Jake added. An empire that leads through example instead of force. That's more powerful than any weapon. You really believe that? Vexillar asked. I do, Jake said firmly. Force can make people obey, but respect makes them willing partners. The galaxy has had enough of conquerors. It's time for something new. 6 months had passed since the Treaty of First Contact was signed. The neutral zone had changed dramatically. Where once there was only empty space, now a large station orbited a gas giant. The structure combined human engineering with Valorian design, creating something unique and beautiful. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Frontier Station, watching ships from both civilizations dock and depart. Cargo vessels moved in careful patterns, carrying goods and materials between human and Valorian space. Beside him, Commander Vexler reviewed trade reports on his datapad. The Economic Council says commerce will increase by 40% within the year, Vexler said. Your farming techniques alone have changed food production on 3 imperial worlds, and your metalworking processes have reduced our ship construction time by 25%, Jake replied. Turns out cooperation is profitable. Vexlar's mandibles clicked in amusement. A lesson the Empire is learning slowly. Not all counselors are happy. Counselor Morek still argues that accepting humans has made us vulnerable. What does Supreme Counselor Zareth say? That progress requires risk and standing still means death. The humans have proven valuable as partners, not threats. Jake smiled. Speaking of partnerships, I have news. The UN is sending 3 more ships through the gateway next month. They'll establish colonies on some of those habitable worlds we identified. We'd like Valorian observers to join the initial surveys. Building trust through openness, Vexelar observed. Your people learn quickly. We had good teachers, Jake said. A signal interrupted them. Lieutenant Kyle Preston's voice came through the communication system. Captain, priority message from Earth, eyes only, sir. Jake excused himself and went to the secure room. The message was from Admiral Stevens, head of UN Space Command. Its contents were alarming. A new alien species had been detected entering known space. Early contact attempts had failed. The newcomers were aggressive and technologically advanced. According to scans, they were heading toward both human and Valorian territories with a large military fleet. Jake immediately contacted Vexelar. Within an hour, they were joined by representatives from Earth and Valoria Prime through quantum communication. Supreme Counselor Zareth and Admiral Stevens both appeared on the holographic display. The screen showed the approaching fleet. 27 vessels of unknown design, moving in perfect formation, ignoring all communication. The Hrek Dominion, Counselor Isandra identified them. Her voice was tense. We have old records of encounters with their scouts 5,000 years ago. They were expanding toward the Galactic Core but disappeared. If they've returned, this is serious. They're not here for friendly talks, Admiral Stevens said grimly. Our analysts estimate they'll reach the outer territories in 3 months. How do we handle this? The question hung heavy in the air. This was the first real test of the alliance between humans and Valorians. Would it hold under pressure, or would old fears override the new bonds of cooperation? Supreme Counselor Zareth spoke first. The Treaty of First Contact includes mutual defense. The Hrek Dominion threatens both our peoples. I propose we honor that commitment. Agreed, Admiral Stevens replied immediately. We'll need to coordinate forces, share intelligence, and develop joint tactics. This will require close cooperation. Jake looked at Vexelar. Commander, you know the Empire's capabilities better than anyone. Can we win this? Vexelar studied the tactical data carefully. Separately? No, the Hrek force is too large. But together, combining human weapons with Valorian fleet numbers and experience, perhaps? Then we need to move fast, Lisa Hayes said. 3 months is not much time to combine 2 different military systems. What followed was the most intensive cooperation either species had experienced. Human and Valorian officers worked side by side, learning tactics, sharing weapon details, and creating communication systems that would let their fleets fight as one unit. The cultural challenges were enormous. Valorians believed in strict hierarchy and glory in battle. Humans focused on flexibility, teamwork, and saving lives. Arguments happened daily. But slowly, a hybrid approach emerged that used the best of both philosophies. Lieutenant Kyle Preston worked with a Valorian named Tirval, teaching the alien-human tactical language while learning Valorian silent communication. Gestures. Dr. Patricia Stone collaborated with Valorian scientists to develop new shield harmonics that could protect both ship types from Hrek energy weapons. Commander Lisa Hayes joined the Joint Tactical Planning Committee. She worked with Valorian Fleet Marshal Corvan to design battle plans. Their first meetings were cold. Corvan saw humans as inexperienced newcomers. Lisa thought Valorians were too rigid. But as they planned scenarios together, respect began to grow. Your people think like hunters, Corvan observed one day. Every plan includes backup positions and surprise attacks. Your people think like chess players, Lisa replied. Every move calculated steps ahead. We need both if we're going to win. Jake Morrison spent his days traveling between Earth and Valoria Prime, coordinating preparations while managing political pressures. Counselor Morak still argued that the wreck threat was exaggerated to justify human influence. On Earth, some groups questioned why humanity should defend alien territory, but evidence kept mounting. Long-range probes confirmed the wreck fleet's approach. Analysis of their trajectory showed they were heading straight for Frontier Station, the symbol of human-Valorian cooperation. Whether by accident or design, the first battle would be fought over the place where the Alliance was born. 2 months and 23 days after the wreck were detected, the combined fleet assembled at Frontier Station. 12 human warships, led by the UNS Defiance, positioned themselves alongside 35 Valorian vessels. It was the largest military force either species had deployed. Jake stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display show both friendly and hostile forces. Commander Vexler had been assigned as liaison officer, placing a Valorian on a human warship for the first time. Fleet status? Jake asked. All ships ready, Lisa Hayes reported. Human vessels at full power. Valorian ships have activated combat systems. The fleet is prepared, sir, Kyle Preston called out. Transmission from the wreck fleet. Broadcasting on all frequencies, let's hear it. The voice was harsh and mechanical, filtered through translation software. Organic entities, you occupy space designated for wreck expansion. Withdraw immediately or be eliminated. This is your only warning. Jake looked at Vexlar. The Valorian's 4 eyes blazed with determination. Captain Morrison, I believe it is time to send our response. Jake nodded and opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Today we face an enemy that believes might gives them the right to take what they want. They think we'll run because they outnumber us. They think fear will divide us, he paused. They're wrong. Humanity and the Valorian Empire came together not from weakness but from strength. We're strong enough to recognize we're stronger together. Whatever happens next, we face it as allies and friends. We show these invaders that this space is claimed, defended, and not available for conquest. Vexlar stepped forward. His voice joined Jake's over the channel. Warriors of the Empire, soldiers of humanity, today we write new history. We stand not as conquerors but as defenders, not as enemies forced together, but as allies who chose partnership. For the Empire, for humanity, for our shared future. Cheers erupted across both fleets, human voices mixed with Valorian battle cries. On the tactical display, the wreck fleet continued forward. 27 vessels against 47 allied ships. They're entering weapons range in 60 seconds, the tactical officer reported. Jake settled into his chair. All ships weapons free. Show them what we're made of. The wreck fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the first line of Valorian ships. Shields flared bright as they absorbed the impacts. The Allied fleet responded with overwhelming force. Human railguns fired with devastating accuracy, their projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Valorian energy weapons poured fire into wreck formations. The battle had begun. For 7 hours, space became a storm of weapons fire and explosions. The wreck fought with mechanical precision, but they had not expected the adaptability of the combined fleet. Human ships darted through Valorian formations, providing cover, while the larger Imperial vessels delivered crushing attacks. Tactical data flowed between both fleets seamlessly. Human computers processed information at speeds that enhanced Valorian strategic planning. Valorian experience in fleet coordination maximized human weapons effectiveness. Ships from both sides took damage. The human cruiser Liberty lost main power and had to be towed to safety by a Valorian frigate. The Valorian battleship Honor's Shield had its engines destroyed, and human engineers worked frantically to restore function. But the Alliance held. When human ships needed support, Valorian vessels provided cover. When Valorian formations broke under fire, human ships filled the gaps. They fought not as 2 separate fleets but as one unified force. Slowly, the tide turned. Wreck ships began taking critical damage. Their formations, once perfect, started to fracture. They had expected easy victory over disorganized opponents. Instead, they faced a coordinated defense that refused to break. News of the human encounter spread through the Valorian Empire like wildfire. Within 2 days, Commander Vexler found himself standing before the Imperial Council on the capital world of Valoria Prime. His career and possibly his life were on the line. The council chamber was ancient and impressive. Its walls were made of crystal that had witnessed 3,000 years of Imperial decisions. 12 council members sat in elevated positions around the circular room. At the highest point sat Supreme Councilor Zareth, whose family had guided the Empire for 6 generations. Commander Vexlar, Zareth's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand accused of cowardice. You allowed an unknown vessel to defy Imperial authority without punishment. Explain yourself. Vexlar stood straight and tall despite the accusation. Honorable Council, I acted to preserve Imperial assets and gather intelligence. The humans have technology we don't understand and weapons that exceed our capabilities. Angry whispers filled the chamber. Councilor Morax, a war hero from the expansion era, leaned forward. His scales were dark with age and scarred from battle. You claim these aliens are superior to us? Based on what evidence? I submit my ship's complete sensor logs, Counselor, Vexlar replied calmly. Their power generation is 23% higher than our capital ships. Their targeting systems locked onto us with perfect accuracy. Their portal technology gives them a strategic advantage we cannot match. The chamber's displays lit up with data. The council members studied the information in silence. Some looked skeptical. Others appeared concerned. One ship, Councilor Tirvin said dismissively. You were frightened by one ship. One ship that could have destroyed us, Vexlar countered firmly. And their captain claims they have 12 more like it, with more being built. Honorable Council, I have served 40 years. I have fought pirates, rebels, and rival powers. I know the difference between empty threats and real capability. These humans have real power. Supreme Councilor Zareth raised his hand for silence. We have reviewed your logs, Commander. You may have been overly cautious, but you showed good judgment. Now this council must decide how to respond to these humans. While the council debated, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room aboard the UNS Defiance. Commander Lisa Hayes had just brought him troubling news. Our long-range sensors show 6 Valorian warships heading our way. They'll be here in 4 hours. Jake studied the tactical display. Fleet composition? 3 dreadnoughts like the one we first met, 2 heavy cruisers, and what looks like a carrier. Combined firepower is significant, but nothing we can't handle, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. If it comes to fighting, Lisa agreed. But we're alone out here, Jake. The nearest UN ship is back through the portal. If they attack in force, we might win the battle but lose the war. Jake nodded. She was right. That's why we need to change their perspective. Get me Lieutenant Kyle Preston. The communications officer arrived quickly. Jake gestured for him to sit. Kyle, I need you to prepare a complete information package about Earth and humanity. History, culture, technology overview. Everything that shows who we are. Nothing classified, but enough to make them understand we're not just another species they can bully. Kyle looked confused. Sir, isn't that a security risk? It's also the only way to build real trust, Jake explained. We can make threats and show our weapons all day, but eventually they'll test us. We have one ship here. They have an entire empire. If they understand what humanity really is, what we've survived, why we're out here, then maybe they'll see us as partners instead of threats. Lisa frowned. And if they use that information against us? Then we deal with it, Jake said simply. But I'd rather take that risk than start a war because neither side was willing to be honest. Back on Valoria Prime, the Council's debate had stretched into its 6th hour. Lines had been drawn quickly. The military faction, led by Councilor Morax, wanted immediate action to destroy the human threat. The conservative faction wanted to retreat and fortify borders. A smaller group wondered if there might be another way. We cannot ignore reality, Zareth addressed the assembly. If Commander Vexlar's assessment is correct, these humans represent a major shift in power. Destroying one ship might provoke a response we're not ready for. Then what do you suggest? Morax demanded. That we bow before these newcomers? I suggest we learn more before committing to an irreversible course of action, Zareth replied calmly. The humans asked for dialogue. Perhaps we should truly listen. The Empire does not negotiate from weakness, Morax insisted. Nor does it fight battles it might lose, Zareth countered. I propose we send an official delegation. Let them present their case. If they prove hostile, we can still use military force. But if peace is possible, we owe our citizens that option. The vote was close, 7-5 in favor of the delegation. Commander Vexlar was chosen to lead it. It was both an honor and a burden. Success or failure would rest on his shoulders. As Vexlar prepared for his return to the neutral zone, he received a message from the human ship. It was a massive data transmission containing information about Earth human history and their journey to the stars. He spent the entire trip reviewing it. With each file, his understanding grew. The humans were a young species, barely 200 years into space travel. Yet they had overcome world wars, environmental disasters, and near extinction. They had united their divided planet through cooperation, not conquest. Their technology had advanced at an incredible pace. The final section caught his attention most. It was a personal message from Captain Morrison. Commander Vexlar, you asked what humanity wants. The answer is simple. We want what every intelligent species wants. The freedom to explore, to grow, to build a future for our children. We spent our entire history fighting each other and nearly destroyed ourselves. When we reached the stars, we made a promise. Never again. We would not repeat our mistakes on a galactic scale. That's why we're sharing this information freely. That's why we prefer talking to fighting. Not because we're weak, but because we're tired of war. We hope you understand. Vexlar closed the file and looked out at the stars. Perhaps the humans were not the threat the Empire feared. Perhaps they were something the galaxy needed. A reminder that strength did not have to mean domination. The formal meeting took place 3 days later. The Valorians had constructed a temporary station in neutral space. It was small but symbolic. Both sides were investing in peace. Commander Vexlar arrived with 5 others. A cultural specialist, a technology expert, a political advisor, and 2 guards. Captain Morrison brought Lisa Hayes, Kyle Preston, and Dr. Patricia Stone, the Defiance's chief science officer. Jake spoke first. Thank you for coming, Commander. We've provided extensive information about humanity. We hope you've had time to review it. Vexlar nodded. We have, Captain. Your species' development is remarkable. To advance from World War to interstellar travel in such a short time is unusual. Necessity drives progress, Dr. Stone said. She was a woman with gray hair and kind eyes. When we almost destroyed ourselves, we had a choice. Work together or die. We chose life. The Valorian cultural specialist, an older female named Isyandra, leaned forward with interest. Your unified government, this United Nations, rules through agreement rather than force? How is this possible? Lisa Hayes answered. It's not perfect. It took decades to build, but yes, every nation on Earth has a voice. Decisions are made through debate and compromise. We learned that diversity makes us stronger if managed correctly. Fascinating, Isandra said, taking notes. The Empire conquers and absorbs other species. But unity through cooperation? This is new to us. Kelvor, a stern military officer representing Counselor Morax, spoke up. Your weapons and defenses, Captain Morrison. Your data was vague about military technology. Why should we trust incomplete information? Jake did not flinch. For the same reason you haven't told us about your classified assets, Officer Kelvor. Some things stay secret until trust is earned. What we've shown proves capability without compromising security. That seems fair? Fair to whom? Kelvor challenged. To both of us, Jake replied calmly. We could spend months testing each other. Or we could admit the obvious. We're both powerful enough to cause serious damage, and smart enough to realize fighting helps no one. Vexlar raised his hand, stopping Kelvor's response. The captain is right. Let us discuss practical matters. Humanity wants to establish presence in this region. The Empire cannot allow unrestricted access to claimed territory. How do we resolve this? Dr. Stone activated a star map. Several systems lit up in neutral space beyond Valorian borders. We've analyzed this region extensively. There are 43 unclaimed systems within reach. 15 have habitable worlds or valuable resources. We propose a compromise. Humanity colonizes these neutral systems, not Imperial territory. In exchange, we offer trade agreements, technology sharing in non-military areas, and mutual defense against external threats. The Valorian delegation exchanged glances. Isandra spoke first. You would share technology? Selected technology, Patricia clarified. Medical advances, agriculture, energy generation, environmental science. Things that improve lives. In return, we'd like access to your navigation data, cultural information about OSI. 3 hours had passed since the tense standoff began. Both ships remained locked in position, weapons ready, neither side willing to make the first move. On the bridge of the UNS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison studied the tactical display with careful eyes. "Captain, I'm picking up their communications," Lieutenant Kyle Preston said from his station. "They're talking to their command center. The translation shows confusion and fear." Jake nodded slowly. "Fear could be useful, but it could also make people desperate and unpredictable. Keep monitoring." "What's our status?" Lieutenant Kelly Wright, the tactical officer, responded quickly. "Our railguns have 3 times their range based on what we've scanned of their hull. Point defense can handle anything they throw at us. Our missiles carry fusion warheads they've probably never seen before. If it comes to a fight, sir, we'll win." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Lisa Hayes said. She stood near Jake's chair, her arms crossed. "But if it does, we need to make it quick." "No half measures," Jake agreed. The United Nations had sent them into deep space to explore and make friends with alien life. Nobody expected to run into an empire that treated first contact like a traffic stop. But humanity had learned hard lessons in its own bloody history. "You could not negotiate from weakness. Open a channel," Jake ordered. On the Valorian ship, Commander Vexlar received the transmission with mixed feelings. His request for help had been acknowledged, but the nearest battle group was still 6 days away. 6 days of facing this unknown threat with only his ship. The human captain's face appeared on the screen again. Vexlar studied him carefully. 2 eyes, smooth skin, no visible natural weapons. But the intelligence behind those eyes was clear. This was a dangerous being. "Commander Vexlar," Morrison began, "I'm going to be honest with you. We didn't come here looking for trouble, but we won't be treated like subjects either. Your empire may rule this sector, but you don't rule us. We can either start shooting and see who survives, or we can talk. Your choice." Vexlar's translator picked up not just the words, but the tone. This was confidence born from real strength, not empty threats. He had been in enough battles to know the difference. "You speak boldly for someone who is alone and far from home," Vexlar said, trying to regain some authority. "Alone." Jake's face did not change. "Commander, I have enough firepower to turn your ship into scrap metal. We have quality and surprise on our side. Now, do we talk or do we test our weapons?" The directness was shocking. In Valorian culture, such blunt threats meant immediate war. But something about the humans' calm manner made Vexlar pause. These beings actually believed they could win a fight. "Very well," Vexlar said carefully. "We will meet on neutral ground. But if you betray this meeting, the entire Valorian Empire will hunt you down." "Understood," Jake replied. "We'll send coordinates for a neutral zone. Bring security if you want, so will we." Morrison out. The screen went dark. Vexlar stared at it for a long moment. His second officer looked worried. "Sir, is this wise? We know nothing about these humans." "Exactly," Vexlar said. "And that ignorance could get us killed. Better to learn what we can while we have the chance." 3 hours later, 2 small shuttles floated in the space between the 2 warships. The human craft was compact and fast-looking. The Valorian shuttle was larger and decorated with symbols of imperial power. Inside the human shuttle, Jake Morrison sat across a small table from Commander Vexlar. The alien was impressive up close. His scales caught the light, his 4 eyes missed nothing, and his claws looked sharp enough to cut steel. Behind him stood 3 Valorian guards, hands near their weapons. Behind Jake stood Lisa Hayes and 2 human Marines in combat armor. "Let me be clear," Jake began without wasting time. "Humanity has no interest in conquering your empire or taking your territory. We're explorers, not invaders, but we also won't be treated as inferior or as subjects." Vexlar listened carefully. His translator worked to capture every detail. "Then what do you want?" "Recognition, respect, the freedom to explore and settle in unclaimed space. In return, we'll open trade, share some technology, and live in peace." "You speak as if you have power to make demands," Vexlar observed. Jake leaned forward slightly. "Commander, I'm going to share something with you in the spirit of building trust. That portal we came through? We can open those anywhere, anytime. We have 12 ships like the Defiance, with more being built. Our weapons are a generation ahead of yours. Our industrial capacity is growing fast. We could be your worst enemy, or we could be valuable friends. The choice is yours." Vexlar's 4 eyes widened. If even half of what the human said was true, the implications were massive. An unknown power with portal technology and better weapons could strike anywhere without warning. "You're asking me to take this to my government," Vexlar said slowly. "I'm asking you to recognize reality," Jake corrected. "We exist. We're here, and we're not leaving. Your empire can accept that and work with us or fight us and lose. If I were you, I know which option I'd pick. Vexlar sat back. His mind was racing. This human was right about one thing. Everything had changed when that ship appeared. The Valorian Empire's long period of total control was over, whether his people wanted to admit it or not. This will require approval from the Imperial Council, Vexlar said finally. We understand, Jake replied. Take your time. We're not going anywhere. But Commander, I need you to understand something important. We're offering friendship. Not everyone would do that after being threatened the way you threatened us. Don't waste this chance. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. They discussed territorial boundaries, trade possibilities, and communication protocols. It was not a negotiation between master and servant. It was a discussion between equals. That alone was revolutionary for the Valorian Empire. As they prepared to return to their ships, Vexlar paused. Captain Morrison, you took a great risk revealing so much about your people. What if we use that information to attack you? Jake smiled slightly. Then you'll learn that trust can be a weapon too, Commander. If you betray our good faith, that tells us everything we need to know about your empire. But you chose to talk instead of fight. That tells us something valuable. What does it tell you? That after 3,000 years of power, you're still capable of wisdom. That's rare, Commander. Worth preserving. Vexlar's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. You are an unusual species, Captain. The galaxy will never be the same now that you've arrived. Probably not, Jake agreed. But maybe that's a good thing. Back on the Eternal Glory, Vexlar immediately sent a detailed report to the Imperial Council. He included all sensor data, recordings of the conversations, and his own assessment. His conclusion was simple but profound. The humans were technologically advanced, militarily powerful, and willing to cooperate. But they would not submit to Imperial authority. The Empire had 3 choices: fight and possibly lose, ignore them and risk future conflict, or accept them as equals and adapt to a new reality. On the UNS Defiance, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. Lisa Hayes, Kyle Preston, and Kelly Wright gathered in the conference room. How did we do? Lisa asked. Better than I hoped, Jake admitted. Vexlar is smart. He recognized that fighting us would be costly even if they won. More importantly, he's willing to consider alternatives to conflict. Do you think their government will agree? Kyle asked. That's the question, Jake said. Empires don't like admitting they're not all-powerful, but they also don't like losing ships and soldiers. We gave them an option that saves face and avoids bloodshed. Whether they take it depends on how wise their leaders are. And if they're not wise? Kelly asked. Jake's expression hardened. Then we show them why picking a fight with humanity is a bad idea. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Over the next few days, both ships maintained their positions. More Valorian vessels arrived, forming a small fleet around the Eternal Glory. Jake watched them come, counting ships and analyzing their formations. 6 capital ships now faced the Defiance. The humans were outnumbered, but Jake was not worried. They're making a show of force, Lisa observed, trying to intimidate us. Let them, Jake replied. Actions speak louder than numbers. If they wanted to fight, they would have attacked already. This is politics, not war, he was right. The Valorian fleet maintained a respectful distance. Weapons powered but not targeting. It was a message. We are strong, but we are willing to wait. On Valoria Prime, the Imperial Council was in heated debate. Commander Vexlar's report had caused chaos. Some councilors demanded immediate military action. Others urged caution. A few even suggested that cooperation might be beneficial. Supreme Councilor Zareth listened to all arguments before speaking. This council must decide the Empire's future. Do we cling to old ways and risk destruction, or do we adapt and survive? Commander Vexlar believes these humans are sincere in their offer of peace. I am inclined to agree. Therefore, I propose we send a formal delegation to negotiate terms. The vote was close, but the decision was made. The Valorian Empire would talk. When Vexlar received the news, he felt relief wash over him. He contacted the human ship immediately. Captain Morrison, my government has agreed to formal negotiations. We will send a delegation to discuss terms of coexistence. The Valorian Empire had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. Their ships moved through the stars like they owned everything they saw. No one challenged them. No one dared to stand against their power. Commander Vexlar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Glory. watching the screens with bored eyes. He had seen this view 1,000 times before. Just another day of patrol in empty space. His ship was massive, a dreadnought that could destroy entire fleets. The Valorians were proud of their military strength. They had conquered dozens of worlds and made hundreds of species bow before them. Vexlar had 4 eyes, scales that shimmered in the light and sharp claws that could tear through metal. He was a warrior, born and bred for battle. "Commander, we are detecting something strange," the sensor officer said. Her voice was curious but not worried. Vexlar clicked his mandibles together. "What is it?" "A spatial anomaly, sir. It looks like a wormhole, but the energy signature is different from anything in our database." Before Vexlar could respond, space itself seemed to rip open. A swirling circle of blue and white light appeared in front of them, growing larger and larger. The bridge crew watched in shock as something emerged from the portal. It was a ship, but not like any ship they had ever seen. The vessel was huge, almost as big as the Eternal Glory. Its design was sleek and dangerous, covered in strange symbols and markings. Along the side, words were written in an unknown language. The ship moved with perfect precision, its engines glowing with intense power. Vexlar felt something he had not felt in years. Uncertainty. "Try to communicate with them," he ordered. "Use the standard Imperial greeting." The communications officer sent out signals on all frequencies. For a long moment there was only silence. Then a voice came through the speakers. The translation system worked quickly, turning the alien words into Valorian language. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Starship Defiance. We come in peace but are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The voice was calm and steady. It belonged to someone who was not afraid. Vexlar straightened in his chair. "These were not simple traders or lost explorers. I am Commander Vexlar of the Valorian Imperial Fleet," he replied. "You have entered restricted space without permission. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Another pause. When the human captain spoke again, there was something new in his voice. It sounded almost like amusement. "Commander, we don't recognize your authority over this region of space. We're here on a mission of exploration and first contact. I suggest we arrange a diplomatic meeting rather than making threats neither of us wants to follow through on." Vexlar's scales rippled with anger. No one spoke to an Imperial commander this way. No one refused a direct order. His claws moved toward the weapons panel. "You have 10 seconds to comply or we will open fire." The human ship did not move. It did not power down its weapons. Instead, something happened that made Vexlar's blood run cold. "Commander," the tactical officer said, fear clear in his voice. "They are activating weapon systems. Energy readings are spiking across their entire hull. Sir, those power levels should be impossible." On the view screen, the human ship seemed to come alive. Points of light appeared all over its surface. The space around it shimmered with barely controlled energy. Vexlar stared at his displays in disbelief. The readings were off the scale. Inside the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair. His face was serious but calm. He was a tall man with short brown hair and sharp eyes. He had seen combat before, back when Earth was still fighting its own wars. "All hands, battle stations," he said quietly. "Charge the main railguns and bring the point defense systems online. Lieutenant Chen, I want firing solutions on that dreadnought, but hold fire unless they shoot first." His second-in-command, Commander Lisa Hayes, stepped closer. She was a woman with red hair tied back in a tight bun. Her voice was low so only Jake could hear. "Captain, we're a long way from home. Are we really going to start a war with the first aliens we meet?" Jake's jaw tightened. "They drew the line, Lisa. If we back down now, we'll be fighting from a position of weakness for however long we're stuck in this part of space. Sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to show you're not afraid of war." Back on the Eternal Glory, Vexlar watched his screens with growing concern. The human ship's energy signatures were higher than anything the Valorians had. Their defensive shields showed readings that exceeded even Imperial capital ships. Worst of all, their weapons were tracking his vessel with perfect accuracy. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vexlar felt real doubt. "Sir, their targeting computers have locked onto us," the tactical officer reported. "Their weapon systems are more advanced than ours. If they fire first, our shields may not hold." Vexlar's mind raced. He had called for reinforcements, but they were 6 days away. 6 days of facing this unknown threat alone. He looked at the human ship on his screen. It just floated there, weapons ready, waiting. "Sir, what are your orders?" his weapons officer asked. Vexlar took a deep breath. He was a warrior, yes, but he was also a survivor, and something about this situation told him that starting a fight with these humans would be a terrible mistake. Stand down weapons, he said slowly, but keep shields at maximum. Open a channel to the human ship. The bridge crew looked shocked, but they obeyed. Vexlar had never backed down from a fight before, but there was a first time for everything. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He was human with only 2 eyes and soft skin, but those eyes were hard and intelligent. This was a predator, Vexlar realized. You could see it in the way he held himself. Commander Vexlar, Morrison said, I'm going to be direct with you. We didn't come here looking for a fight, but we're not going to be pushed around either. Your empire may rule this sector, but you don't rule us. Now we can either start shooting at each other and see who's still standing when it's over, or we can talk like civilized beings. Your choice. Vexlar listened carefully. The human's tone was confident but not arrogant. This was someone who knew his ship's capabilities and was willing to use them. You speak boldly for someone who is outnumbered and far from help, Vexlar replied. Outnumbered? Jake's expression did not change. Commander, I have enough firepower on this ship to turn your dreadnought into dust. Now do we talk or do we fight? The bluntness shocked Vexlar. But something about the human's manner suggested this was not empty bravado. These beings actually believed they could win. Very well, Vexlar said slowly. We will arrange a meeting. But understand this, human. If you betray this agreement, the full might of the Valorian Empire will hunt you across the stars. Noted, Jake replied. We'll send you coordinates for a neutral zone between our ships. Bring whatever security you need. We'll do the same. Morrison out. The screen went dark. Vexlar stared at his own reflection in the blank display. What had he just agreed to? Meeting with an unknown species that had appeared from nowhere and challenged Imperial authority. Sir, his second officer said carefully, should we not wait for reinforcements? Vexlar's mandibles clicked in thought. These humans know we called for help. They could jump back through their portal and escape before our ships arrive. Yet they're choosing to stay and talk. That tells me they either have more ships nearby, or they genuinely want to avoid a fight. Or they're fools, the weapons officer suggested. Perhaps, Vexlar said, but fools don't build ships like that. He looked at the human vessel on his screen one more time. Everything had changed the moment that ship emerged from the portal. The Valorian Empire's 3,000 years of unchallenged rule had just come to an end, and somehow Vexlar knew that the galaxy would never be the same again.